You log online, and suddenly it's like you're standing in the middle of a war zone. On one side, someone is screaming that carbs are toxic, and on the other, they're swearing that a high-fat diet is going to absolutely destroy your health. So why does nutritional science always feel so incredibly confusing? Well, let's dive into this. The truth is, the fundamental biology of how our bodies process food hasn't changed at all, but the sheer volume of conflicting advice, that has skyrocketed. Today, our goal is to step completely away from the internet diet wars and look objectively at the facts. We're going to demystify human nutrition by looking at exactly how the body works.
Welcome to this explainer. Think of this as the missing instruction manual for your body. Because honestly, before we can even begin to evaluate which diet is quote-unquote best, we absolutely have to understand the biological mechanics of the machine we're feeding. Once we know how the engine actually works, we'll take a neutral, objective look at three very popular, yet very different dietary frameworks.
Here's our roadmap for today. First, the human food factory. Second, macros and micros explained. Third, the classic food pyramid. Fourth, the heart-healthy DASH diet. Fifth, ketosis and the keto diet. And finally, number 6, fixing your biological machine.
All right, part 1, the human food factory. I want you to picture your body not as some magical, mysterious black box, but as a highly efficient, super complex biological machine. It's got specific inputs, mechanical processes, and outputs. It's literally a step-by-step demolition and sorting process. First up, the mouth. This is your built-in grinder. You chop food into a paste while salivary enzymes kick off the very first round of digestion. Next, it hits the stomach. Think of this as your personal acid tank, where proteins unfold and everything gets turned into a usable mush. Then it moves into the small intestine, the ultimate absorption zone. Here, tiny biochemical scissors cut everything down into microscopic pieces that cross right over into your bloodstream. And finally, everything reports to the liver, the command center. The liver is the boss. It decides whether to burn a nutrient, store it, or detoxify it. So ultimately, you aren't just what you eat, you are what you absorb.
Moving on to part 2. Macros and micros explained. So now that we have the factory running, we need to talk about the raw materials required to keep it from breaking down. We hear these buzzwords all the time, but let's define them clearly. Macronutrients are the primary molecular building blocks that your body needs in huge quantities. We're talking about carbohydrates, fats, and proteins. And right alongside those are the micronutrients, your vitamins and minerals. Now, they don't give you caloric energy, but they act like the spark plugs to make the whole engine run. But for now, let's focus on those 3 big fuel sources and how your body actually handles them. First up, carbohydrates. Every single carb you eat gets converted into glucose, which is your body's absolute favorite fast fuel. But look at the architectural difference between these carbs. Simple carbs are tiny, weak molecular chains. Your body smashes them apart instantly, and that leads to a super fast blood sugar spike, a really fast crash, and rapid hunger. Complex carbs, on the other hand, are long, tangled chains. They require slow digestion, which gives you a nice, smooth, steady glucose release. That's what keeps you full and energized for a much longer time. Next, we've got protein. Every cell in your body is made of protein, but unlike carbs and fats, your body doesn't actually have a storage tank for it. If you don't eat enough, your body literally steals it from your own muscles. Yikes, right? So the absolutely crucial point here is how we trigger muscle building. To flip on the body's build switch, which activates an amino acid called leucine, you need a critical mass of protein. For most people, that means consuming roughly 30 grams of high-quality protein in a single meal. Just grazing on tiny amounts throughout the day often isn't enough to physically flip that switch. And then we have fats. A healthy cellular metabolism works exactly like a hybrid engine, seamlessly switching back and forth between 2 fuel sources. In sugar mode, when your blood sugar rises right after a meal, your body prioritizes burning that glucose first, simply because chronically high sugar is damaging. But here is where the magic happens. Once that sugar is depleted, a healthy engine flips right into fat mode, burning your stored body fat for fuel. We call this metabolic flexibility. The catch? If you're constantly snacking on simple carbs all day long, you literally never let the factory shift into fat mode.
Part 3, the classic food pyramid.
All right, now that we understand the raw materials, let's take a look at the very first set of instructions we were given to organize them. You probably remember this image from school, but did you know the original food pyramid was actually a 1970s Swedish invention? Yeah, it was designed specifically to combat high food prices. At the tiny tip, you've got sweets and fats, meant to be used sparingly. Just below that, dairy and proteins for calcium and growth. Next tier down is a massive section of fruits and vegetables for vitamins and fiber. But look at that foundation. The biggest section, the entire base of the pyramid relies heavily on grains, pasta, cereals, and rice. It's a highly carbohydrate-dominant framework, designed specifically to provide abundant glucose for bodily functions and physical activity.
Section 4. The Heart-Healthy DASH Diet.
Okay, so DASH stands for Dietary Approaches to Stop Hypertension. It was originally developed just to lower blood pressure, but the medical community quickly realized it had massive, game-changing potential for overall health, and the data totally backs this up. According to the National Institutes of Health, out of 40 different diets evaluated, DASH was actually chosen as #1. It scored an incredible 4.5 out of 5 in the health usefulness category. It's recognized for preventing strokes, heart failure, and it's basically a top-tier approach for managing insulin resistance and preventing diabetes.
So what does DASH actually look like in everyday life? Well, it is definitely not a starvation crash diet. It's a complete lifestyle change. The rules are super balanced and very specific. You drink 67 ounces of fluids daily. You eat 5 smaller meals a day to keep those portion sizes down. You maintain a caloric intake around 2,000 to 2,500, depending on your goals. And crucially, this is a big one, you cap your salt intake at 2 to 3 teaspoons a day maximum. By filling up on whole grains, vegetables, and lean proteins, you just naturally crowd out the fast food, fatty meats, and sodas. It's safe, it's sustainable, and best of all, it keeps you feeling full.
Part 5. Ketosis and the Keto Diet.
Now here, we find a completely different instruction manual, one that represents a radical, fundamental shift in how that hybrid engine we talked about uses its fuel. The entire goal of the keto diet is to force the body into a state called ketosis. Remember how your body absolutely loves glucose? Well, when you drastically cut carbohydrates, your stored glucose eventually runs out. To survive, your liver steps up and begins breaking down fat into free fatty acids, converting them into substances called ketone bodies. These ketone bodies are then pumped directly into the bloodstream, where your cells, and amazingly, even your brain, pick them up and use them for energy instead of sugar. Just look at how extreme that shift really is. While a conventional diet might be, say, 60% carbohydrates, the keto diet flips the entire paradigm upside down. You are consuming roughly 70% fat, 25% protein, and a tiny 5% of carbohydrates, usually keeping those carbs strictly below 30 grams a day. Because this is such a massive shock to the factory floor, transitioning off carbs can actually cause the temporary keto flu. You might get headaches and fatigue as your body frantically searching for the sugar it's used to, before it finally gets the memo and switches the metabolic machinery over to fat burning. Now, there are definitely drawbacks to this. For instance, you might see decreased power output during max intensity workouts because you're lacking that fast-burning glycogen. Yet, despite that, the keto diet remains incredibly popular. Why is that? Well, it comes down to this finding from the Annals of Internal Medicine. Low-carbohydrate diets often have much better participant retention. It's really simple. Because fat and protein are highly satiating, people actually feel full. A 200-calorie piece of chicken will keep you full far longer than 200 calories of pasta. And that helps people stick to the plan and battle those mid-afternoon feeding frenzies. And finally, part 6, fixing your biological machine. Okay, so we've looked at the factory, we've looked at the fuel, and we've explored 3 totally different dietary frameworks. How do we synthesize all of this into a plan that actually works for you? Well, the absolutely crucial point is this. Stop arguing about the roof when the foundation is cracking. It genuinely does not matter if you choose the structure of DASH, the ketosis of keto, or the balance of the food pyramid if your biological factory is constantly overwhelmed by ultra-processed junk food. Ancient biology is simply no match for modern food engineering. That stuff is literally designed to hijack your dopamine levels and completely bypass your natural signals of fullness. So here it is. The ultimate 4-step logical hierarchy to optimize your machine. Step 1, cut the crap using the 1-ingredient rule. A steak is a steak. Broccoli is broccoli. If it didn't exist 200 years ago, avoid it. Step 2, lock in the foundation. Before you even think about counting calories, count your protein. Hitting your protein goals triggers the GLP-1 fullness signal in your brain, which naturally crowds out the junk. Step 3, adjust the dials. Your protein stays fixed, but you turn the carb and fat dials based on your lifestyle. Sit at a desk all day, lower the carbs. Train like a pro athlete, turn them up. And step 4, fill the holes. Get your blood work done and use targeted supplements as high-quality insurance for the specific nutrients you're actually missing. Which leaves us with one final thought to consider about your own internal factory. Every single time you eat, you are sending instructions directly to your cells. You are either giving them the smooth, structural components they need to build and run efficiently, or you're dumping raw sugar and processed industrial oils straight into the gears. So ask yourself,
Are you feeding a healthy, flexible hybrid engine, or are you just fueling a wildfire of cellular inflammation? The raw materials you choose next are entirely up to you. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I'll see you next time.